Welcome to Creative Courage Chats, a search for a new understanding of creativity and problem solving. I'm Alex Raffi. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Creative Courage Chats. I'm here with an old friend of mine, Dwayne Eschenbaugh, who's he owns Novus Architecture in Las Vegas, and he is been working in Las Vegas for a long time. And I've already spoken to a few architects, and can you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit for me?
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. Thanks for inviting me today. This is fun, and I know those two other architects that you've spoken with, and they're both great guys. So glad they were on the show. Yeah, so my name's Dwayne.
I think you're the taller of the three.
The taller I am, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no question there. Absolutely. My name is Dwayne Eschenbaugh.
You guys are very competitive. I just wanted to throw that out. I know that.
Yeah. Craig and Eric right now are like, they're fretting. You know, they're like walking away from their. Well, this isn't live, so they'll have to wait.
Yeah, they'll have to wait.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't say their names. Nobody could pick on them. Anyway, my name is Dwayne Eschenbaugh. I am an architect. I've been in Las Vegas for 36 years. Via Nellis Air Force Base. I was in the Air Force. I did construction. I was a carpenter. And anyway, ended up getting out of the Air Force when I was discharged and jumped right into architecture school at UNLV. Graduated there, then I went down to University of Arizona for my master's, finished up down there and came back to work. And Alex, I don't know if you know, I worked for Craig Galati for 14 years.
Oh, I didn't know that. No, I didn't.
Yeah, I was an owner over there for a bit and decided I wanted to try something different after being only there for 14 years. I thought there was more to discover. But they're great people, great firm, and
Ray Lucchese was there at the time.
Ray was there. Yeah,
he's an interesting guy. He's a really talented guy.
Yeah. So I've been at it for, I guess I've been at it. I've kind of lost track. 25 years plus or minus, probably a little bit over that.
Mm-hmm. So we were talking a little bit briefly on, and there was something I've always kind of thought about in terms of architecture, and I wanted to kind of throw it towards you. You know, the idea of this entire thing is creativity, and discussing creativity with people who do this for a living, who use their creativity for a living. And one of the areas that I kind of talk about in my workshop is what happens is people that are creatives that are in tune with their creativity eventually reach a level of nuance in their work that is it's no longer a technical thing. It's no longer just the mechanics of the thing that you're doing. It's almost like it's kind of like playing an instrument, where you start speaking through your work, and it's not just doing the work; it's actually communicating through the work. And I think that's really relevant in architecture. I mean, because it's so heavily technical, and there's so much that goes into it, and there's so many mechanics that are involved, and things you have to consider. You know, because the building's got to stay up, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of things there, but it's also a space where people, I mean, anything that ever happened in the world happened in a place that someone designed at some point, right? So I was going to ask you about, during your particular process with your team, and I don't know if that's too abstract a question, but I'm just throwing it out. See what happens, right? So do you know what I'm talking about as far as process, the nuance?
Yeah, I do. And I do. I've got all these things popping up here. I should have turned off notifications. Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up, because I'm really kind of experiencing that right now over the last, let's call it a couple of years. And I do believe it has something to do with years of experience, maturity as a designer, as an architect. And you're absolutely right. For so many, this profession is so involved. I mean, there's so many different aspects of architecture. There's the technical, there's the running of the business, there's the legal, there's contracts, there's clients. There's such a breadth of things all contained within the profession of architecture. But really, when you get into design and creating, when you shift over to that part of it, it takes a long time to get through. You know, you're learning all the software, you're learning all the the design process. You're learning how to put buildings together technically. There's a lot there, right? So once you get through all of that mental exhaustion, if you have anything left, yeah, you do kind of settle in, and it's been very interesting for me lately. I've just felt that I can really get into a project, and you know, I don't want to like pat myself on the back, but I've always been a good designer. I've always been very creative, and you know, I have a good eye. I know I understand proportion and scale and materiality and place, and putting all of that together is really fun and interesting. But you know, over the last few years, and I guess it's because I'm getting older, maybe I've just finally learned what it takes to really critically synthesize all of that stuff, just almost without thinking about it, and it frees up energy, frees up brain cells to really critically look at your work and have time to make something excellent.
Right.
So I think it's interesting that you bring that up, because it's absolutely it occurs, I think, in one's career. Probably some sooner than others. You know, maybe I'm a late bloomer. Maybe there's people with the ability to do that, you know, when they're 30, when they're somewhat newly licensed. But it's very interesting.
I don't think so. I think that you're right. Once you start to get the gray hair, it's like you replace the color with something else. And I don't know if it's confidence. You know, you have confidence in your ability now to where it's, you know, before it was like, oh, I hope I get everything. But then it becomes, especially when you build a great team of people that you know that you can just lean against, and that they will always be there to have your back. When you're the lead on a creative, you're able to kind of explore a little bit. And I know that you go through a thorough process with your clients on understanding the needs and the wants, and then also educating them to some extent also as to things they may not have considered that fit into the realm of their needs as well, and ways of delivering things they didn't expect, right? Where you know, they say they want blue, but boy, maybe green and purple are pretty fantastic, and until you tell them green and purple is fantastic, they don't really realize that was an option. And I think that's what a lot of people do is when you're starting off. I think a client tells you, I want it to be blue, and all you do is think everything blue. No, you don't want to have anything else. And I'm being abstract, but you know what I'm saying. But then you get this confidence level, and of course you build a reputation, and these people trust you, and all that stuff helps. But I think you're right. I think it has to do with getting older, and also, you know, there's a legacy there. You got to start putting your name on things, you know.
Yeah, right. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think one of the attributes with this that makes it happen is the team around you, right? So, you know, architecture is it's not about one person, and you know, there certainly are those names that we all know, right, that are famous architects, but they really didn't do all that work themselves, right? It takes a full team. Sure. And once you have that team in place that can, like you said, can handle the technical side of it, it frees you up a little bit to, you know, even be more creative, be more critical of the work, and look at options and alternatives and the nuance. That's where you find the nuance. You have the time to let it soak in and really work with it.
So cool. If I'm looking to build, or I want a building, let's say a building, what are some of the things that you ask, some of the questions that you ask during that process, like your discovery process? I mean, what are one of the main things you're looking for in when you're looking to design something?
Yeah, I think, you know, it depends on every project, and there's so many different project types. You know, my firm does a lot of different work. We do hospitality, which, you know, we do commercial, we do high-end luxury residential, we do everything, higher ed, university buildings. And I guess if, you know, I'm just gonna pick like something where the client is really involved, I guess, versus just a retail store maybe or something. But, you know, you have to really get into them. I think you're gonna be successful if you can really get inside their head. I mean, really get in there, you know, like you said, they want it to be the wall to be blue or something like that. That kind of that's not very deep whatsoever. So you have to quickly get past that and understand what's motivating them. And there's so much to it. It goes beyond finishes and materials and site into economics and what their business goals and objectives are. I mean, it gets kind of deep, right?
Yeah.
But I want to know what what they like, what motivates them, what's going to excite them about the project.
Right.
Oftentimes, I always go into I call it a deep dive, a visioning and a goals session with clients. And I just want to talk to them. Why are you doing this? What are your goals? What's the vision? What do you see? And those are often not architecturally structured sentences. They're more practical stuff, but we find a way to get what we need out of that. And and I like to use that. I like to keep that. I actually memorialize that and take it throughout the process. And we're always checking back to that document, making sure that we're on track.
I guess that's kind of what I'm also talking about is a lot of the questions really don't have to do anything with architecture. Maybe they have to do with where they're at in their lives. What was their goals? The space, let's just say it's a space that's you're going to deal with maybe people with addiction. And then, maybe it's a place where they do therapy and stuff. Well, that's relevant, right? In the design of the place, how it's going to flow and what people are going to see and feel and expect when they go through the process. There's so many aspects of the use of the space that probably make such an important impact on your particular process, I imagine. I'm talking like I know what I'm saying. I'm not an architect, but I know enough of you guys. And I've had enough conversations with you guys. And just my connection with the AIA for so many years is that I've always loved the craft. And I actually used to want to be an architect when I was a kid. And then I realized it's hard. So I was like, there was like, I had to learn how to be a plumber and electrician. It was like, no, I just want to draw. But
see, and that's interesting because I actually started out my path. I think I started out as an artist. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be an artist.
That makes sense. More sense.
Yeah, I wanted to be an artist. I was creative. I could draw. I was painting. All of that stuff, right? And I was unsure really what I wanted to do. So that's how I ended up joining the Air Force. And by the time I started building, it just became natural. It's like I'm building stuff. I really enjoyed that process. And, then just understanding about how things go together and then marrying that with the creative process of an artist, I think, really, really fits well for me. It's that whole right brain, left brain.
I would argue that you are, so regardless. So, if you're creating, if you're see, this is the problem. This is the problem is that people put this like saying an artist. It's like such. It's funny that everybody puts this emphasis on the importance of an artist and how cool it is. Yet we don't fund the arts very well. We pull it out of our schools. We don't show it any respect, but we think, wow, you're an artist. It's just this weird thing about it. But the art in general is just communicating an idea, and a lot of it, if not most of it, is commissioned by people who can't do the thing, and people that actually, most of the time that's how it's done. It's they're renting your talent and using it in some way, shape, or form. But I think that a lot of time, this is when I talked to somebody a while back, and I was and they were complimenting me on my interview style because they said they forgot that they were being interviewed, and then I said, well, it's because I don't care about you. It's because I'm interviewing you, but I don't care about you. What I care about is the kid that's curious about architecture or whatever it is, who's watching this video to get a little bit of insight. That's who I'm thinking of when I'm asking the questions. So in terms of that, any young woman or young man who may be thinking of the industry, architecture, and I know that it's not an easy business. I mean, it's very competitive. And so what kind of advice would you give them of things maybe that you figured out that you know, once you got into it, that you wish somebody would have maybe told you? I don't know if you have anything like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know, we work. I've been working for a few years now with the UNLV students, mostly the younger first and second and third year students. They've got a program, they call it Coffee with an Architect. And
Oh,
I invite them over, they come over to the office, and
no,
other
that's
firms.
not whiskey with an architect.
Maybe that's grad school level stuff, right? I'm talking undergraduate.
we're talking architects here, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and other architects in town have done it and participated, but that's a really great. I mean, those kids are already at the university, right? But it's still a great opportunity to sit down with them, just like you and I are talking, and be honest. Let them know we're real people and we don't have this facade, you know, we're not this thing. But you know, really, I think you mentioned it. I mean, this profession is getting very competitive, and it always has been. And it's a difficult profession, and it's an expensive profession to get into. You know, you have to have you know, the process is either a 5+1 or a 6-year degree. So you're going to school for, you know, 6 years anyway. Which is a lot of tuition and housing and food and beer money and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
I think the sooner you can get in, and you know, we try to work with. We've got programs with AIA Las Vegas where we're in the schools, in the middle schools and even elementary schools, teaching kids about architecture and planting that seed and showing them who we are and what we do. And you know, pick up a pen and start sketching. You know, just draw something, draw a tree in a house. And because I think the sooner you can plant the seed and inspire these kids, I think something sticks with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
It happened to me, and I'll share a real quick story. I have my older brother. It's a twisted story, but he's 14 years older than me. And first time I met him was when he came home from Vietnam, from the Vietnam War. I was maybe 4. I don't know how old I was, but he went to in high school he went to a vo-tech type school for drafting, and he had a drafting table. There was always this drafting table downstairs in our basement with pencils and all the rulers and stuff like that. And just as a young kid, I mean young, like 5, 6, 7, seeing that stuff, and eventually, you know, being brave enough to mess it up and play with it and use it, really became interested in that, you know. So it was just that it was the stuff and the tools. My brother wasn't even here to talk to me about drafting. Nobody was. But I think, you know, that was an early memory that I've carried with me, that it doesn't take a whole lot. It doesn't take a whole lot to inspire somebody.
No, you're right. That's so important. That's a really important thing to think about. Everybody to think about is that we're all qualified to inspire.
But what would I tell somebody? I think was your question. You know, what have I learned? I'll tell you the biggest thing, and we all talk about it, even I think when we're in school, architects have no business courses. We get nothing in our curriculum that's going to teach us how to run a business. And you know, it's unfortunate because they spend so much time focused on design, which is awesome, and we love it as students. But you know, realistically, I'm going to guess, you know, maybe 20% of all graduates, all architects, are design architects. And then you have production architects and you have business architects. You know, there's jobs for everybody, but very few are true designers. Yet that's what the entire curriculum is focused on. So that's a real shortcoming, I think, just in the profession. But certainly learning about business, learning software, you know.
That's very practical advice. That's very good advice.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell even the UNLV students that I talk to, I said, you know, give up one of your electives and go take a business 101 or something, you know, learn about finance. It's very important. But you know, other things like just draw, sketch, you know, I think I was a TA at the University of Arizona for 2 years, and a sketchbook was required. And it was, I think it was like 40% of the final grade each semester. And they didn't have to be great sketches. The sketchbook had to be full. That was the criteria. It had to be full, and it had to appear like the student made an effort, right? So they weren't just cranking out 50 sketches the night before it was due. So I think sketching is always a plus. You know, you've got to be able to convey your ideas. This is somebody told me this, and I'm not even sure where I picked this up along the way. I could give Craig Galati credit. Let's give Craig some credit.
Sure, why not?
But yeah, why not? Start when you're with a when you're with a client. Craig's a great marketing guy, so possibly came from him. But when you're with a client, you know, a new client in particular, the sooner you can start showing them that you're an architect and being an architect, the better. Means you have to be able to, as soon as you have an opportunity to sketch in front of them or to draw something in front of them, they're going to connect with you. They're going to be like, that's the person I want to work with, because you've started, you know, you're drawing right there. You're being an architect in the moment.
Right.
So that's an important thing as well.
Yeah, I always say that too. When you're designing a brand or a logo for somebody, and if you're having a little bit of an issue with a client because the client's having a hard time doing it, this works 100% of the time. Have them sit next to you and have them just suggest one thing and then do the one thing. And now the logo is theirs. No matter what it looks like, they own it. It always works. It always, it's so
smart.
It's a really good tactic, and it's important, and it's good because it's not even a trick. It's you're giving them something. You're giving them the ability to be part of the process, which is actually a very valuable thing. I mean, I think they're getting their money's worth if they're going through that process. You know, through what you were talking about, I for some reason it popped into my head. You know, Harry Ray, right?
Oh yeah,
my friend Harry Ray, who in you know, local Las Vegas architect we lost recently to cancer, but he and I were very close.
Good dear friend.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he and I would talk about this stuff all the time, just, you know, at lunch or whatever, when we're hanging out, playing guitar or whatever. And one of the things I remember that stuck with me is that he always valued or thought that was important when you're thinking of design to consider natural design, like leaves on trees, and how and things that happen due to the nature, not created by man, but literally created by Earth, and that and consider those things when you're designing and try to think within those terms. And I thought that was really an interesting and powerful way of looking at it, and I know that's part of the design thing, but I also do think that sometimes when we're trying to find a place to start, which is always a thing, you know, when we're going to build something, there's this mythology, I call it mythology, that there's a blank slate and we're waiting for inspiration to hit us to get started. And I think that's just wrong thinking, because there's never a blank slate, and nothing is coming from the outside. Everything's in you already. It's just a matter of you letting it happen, right? So I don't know. I always that was go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, Harry was a great architect and a good friend to all of us, and I know you and Harry were very close, and and we miss him, man. I've not known a more curious architect. He was just always, you know, looking at something, always picking at something, and Harry was just a great guy. But he's absolutely right, and I was going to say, I swear, Alex, and we haven't talked before this. None of this is planned, but it's like you stole a page out of something I'm writing right now that really talks about. Yeah, absolutely. There's a term for it in the profession. It's called biomimicry, and it's where we look to nature for design solutions.
Okay. Yeah.
And you're absolutely spot on with that. And as a matter of fact, I was writing that the answers are in nature. I mean, that's really my sentence. You know, it's an outcome of what I'm writing right now. But we need to look to nature more for inspiration, for the answers. I mean, they're all there. If you don't have to look anywhere else, really. You know, you think about how microclimates, how we want to shade windows. You know, look at a ravine up in a wash in the mountain where there's a stream and the ravine, the top cantilevers over a little bit, protecting the growth that's underneath it. I mean, you know, there's so many natural answers to man-made problems. I think, Harry's right on, and I think many architects do. You know, many are smart enough that we know how to look and where to look. Others maybe not so much, but But
We're not talking about that. No, but
no, it's a great.
I,
Yeah,
I,
it's just a great.
I love I
Go
love
ahead.
I love the idea. I love the art. First of all, the art form of architecture is a beautiful thing, and I think that it's. When I was a kid and I lived in Italy for a few years when I was younger, and we went to all the Duomos and all these places in
Mhm.
Venice and everything. So when I was really young, I was surrounded by architecture but it wasn't just architecture. I mean, there was this sacredness to design it was like when they designed it, they were thinking like 200 years from now somebody's going to be looking at this, somebody's
Yeah.
going to be considering this. I have to put everything I have into this thing,
Yeah.
and I might not even be alive when it gets built, because back then it took forever to build stuff, but I'm still going to put everything I have into it. And there's this immediacy now on a lot of things that I think gets in the way of the craft. and
No, totally.
and I think that I remember just staring at a door one time. It was in Florence, and the Duomo in Florence, and this carved door, and it was just telling an entire story. And I spent so much time just staring at that door. My dad's got a picture of me just sitting there staring at the door, and because I thought it was kind of funny, but it was just amazing to me. It was just amazing because you don't see things like that.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
too young of a country to have that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'll speak. Yeah, go ahead.
no, but go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I'll speak to your doors for a second. My wife and I, who you interviewed, Rachel, we've traveled Europe, and she's more of a semi-professional photographer, real photographer. I'm an amateur, right? But one of the things we photograph are doors,
Oh,
because they're so unique and there's so many different types. And we've been collecting these for probably 8 years now in our travels, and we want to make a coffee table book
yeah.
of just doors. They're amazing. But anyway, yeah, your point. I mean, as an architect, I appreciate design as you do, and traveling, of course, we visit places known and unknown to many people, and you have different experiences. I mean, really, you can have architecture can invoke emotional reactions from you. And I think for me, I mean, I'll tell you, there's been a lot of good examples. I think standing, and this is more art actually than architecture, but standing, in the center of the Sistine Chapel, and looking at those frescoes on the ceilings. I mean, that was a goosebump emotional moment for me. Back in, I think it was 2014 or 16, we took my daughters to Spain on a trip, and we went to see Antonio Gaudi's Sagrada Familia, of course. And I should know when it started construction, but I believe that building has been under construction for over 100 years. And it's probably a decade away from being completed. But inside that building, inside that space, a cavernous cathedral, I mean, I'm on one end of the thing and Rachel's on the other end of the thing, and we meet up, and literally, I'm not BSing you, we were both in tears, both shed tears. It was such a beautiful space. The light and just the scale and the history of it. It's just incredible. But you're right. We're rushed. Today we're rushed. It's all about budget. It's all about how fast can you build it? How quick can you build it?
Right. And that side of it, the emotional side of it's funny because it always blindsides you, right? You're almost shocked and embarrassed that, why am I getting so emotional?
I know.
and I like that there's something, the mystery of that is really kind of a beautiful thing, because the fact that we don't know why is so justifying of what I'm trying to do. Yeah. Is because there's this mystery about our appreciation of things, and the things that we're influenced by and we're moved by, and are people actually making a record of the things that move them? Because if we knew and we had a record that we could go back to of all the things that moved us in some emotional way, we would start to actually see the architecture of who we were, all listen,
Mhm.
we'd have to be able to understand who we are and where we're from. And the Sistine Chapel is a perfect example of kind of what I was trying to get at it before also. As a piece of artwork, it's brilliant. As an artist, he is Michelangelo is at the peak, all right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But everything that's in the Sistine Chapel, everything that he's done for the church, that was all commissioned artwork. All of
Right.
that was commissioned by the Pope. There is no difference between what he did and what you do in
Right.
terms of you're being commissioned by someone to express a thing that they need expressed or do
Yeah.
a thing they need created. And there's this weird thing where people don't make these connections. That Michelangelo and there's a lot of stories of him and the Pope butting heads on a lot of things.
Mhm.
And I talk about that in my talk as well, that he put a little bit of his own views that were counter to what the church was trying to teach in his paintings, particularly the one in the Sistine Chapel. But I think that's an interesting part of it, is that commissioned work can also create emotion, can also create things in people, stir people through the
Yeah.
commissioned work. And I think that's important for a young person to hear, because a lot of artists think it's selling out to use their creativity for something like because you said you started out an artist and it took you into architecture. So
Mhm.
all it did, it's like the old thing I like to say, like the old Elvis Presley movies. Like he would be a guy at the gas station, but then he would pick up a guitar and he'd play like Elvis.
Yeah.
But he was a gas station guy. So it's like you have that in you and you can apply it to anything that you do, and this powerful thing. And I think that there's a lot of things that come with it, but I think there's something, the fire that's inside you that drives you forward, right?
Yeah, and I think it's I do think it's confidence and maturity. I think you get to a point. I've heard people say this as I'm growing up. That they've gotten to a point where they don't care what others say or whatnot. Well, I'm hitting that point, right?
I love that. I'm practically there now, so it's
I
like
know, right? I've got the beard, the COVID beard, and the I've got more hair than I've had since high school. And
yeah.
I don't care. It's I'm comfortable with who I am and what I do, and the people I'm around, and my company and whatnot. And matter of fact, I'm probably going to stick with this. But when we started quarantining, at home, when we left the office, it's like I ordered a bunch of black T-shirts, and that's all I'm wearing. So I think our friend Randy Levine with AIA Las Vegas.
Right. Love Randy.
Feels like 4 Zoom meetings a day with her, and she's probably like from day to day, Dwayne, do you ever change clothes?
You just haven't changed. That's your pajama shirt. You never get out of your pajamas.
But I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable in and out of my skin, right? And even with what I'm wearing, and I think I'm not changing. When we go back to work, I'll sit in a boardroom with my jeans and this black T-shirt on, and I might have a blazer, but that's what you're going to get from now on moving forward. I think it's not about all that stuff. It's just about doing your work and honing your craft, and being a good person and all of that stuff. So
that's it. That's my rewind moment. I love that. Yeah, that's true. You can have it all. I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but I mean, you can really have it all. You can
yeah.
If you're willing to do the hard work, because it's all hard work. I mean, nothing comes easy, and it requires a lot of hours, a lot of time and dedication, and staying up late and getting up early and all that stuff. But boy, when you start to really taste the reward of something you did that isn't just appreciated by yourself, which is important, but when you start to get the accolades from people around you, when you start to get, I always think even now, I mean, I really appreciate it when someone asks for some advice on something, and so I feel like, okay, I have to give them really good advice, because I'll do my best, because this is a privilege for someone to actually ask you for help on something. It's a privilege, and you should take that seriously.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of important. And so it's nice. So so have you done any teaching?
I have. I've taught off and on at UNLV at the School of Architecture since '97. and I'm actually teaching a 4th-year design studio this fall. We start in 2 weeks, and it's all going to be virtual.
That's cool. Well, you know,
So,
you got
yeah, that'll be interesting. You know, I'm glad. Well, obviously, we're doing it virtual because of the pandemic, but you know, the pandemic, you know, it's been easy for architects to move out of the office and into the house and not skip a beat. You know, we've decided, not because of really any economical forces, but we've decided to downsize our office here by half. Our lease was up, the timing worked. I mean, we are going to save a lot of money, but it was just the right thing to do. I mean, we're going to reduce our carbon footprint. You know, our staff are going to be, they're going to enjoy working from home as much as they want, even after COVID's gone. You know, they're going to have a better quality of life. They're going to drive less. They're going to eat healthier because they can cook at home. And they can come into the office whenever they want because they still have a desk here, but we're just giving up a lot of the big fat space that we had and don't need anymore.
The benefits of hiring grown-ups is that you can do that.
Yes. Yes.
is I'm in the same boat. Is that you know, my staff, they're on top of everything. I mean,
Yeah.
the results are, you see the results. If people aren't doing their job, you know, unless you're a lousy boss,
Right.
you're a terrible boss, you will know who the people that are working and who aren't working. You know.
Yeah, we have a pretty easy idea. I understand, and I feel for families, you know, that have a couple of kids at home, and then the parents are working from home, and they have to do their job. They have to be parents to the kids. They have to be teachers. So there's a lot of people out there struggling with the process, but it's been working pretty well for us.
Well,
You know,
hey, Dwayne, thank you for taking the time.
yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. That was pretty fun chat, and I hope you enjoyed it. And because I think this is like the 3rd time we tried to do this. I think that you and
I know.
both.
Yeah, I had to bail once, you bailed once, and here we are.
so luckily we finally got a chance to get together and do this. But and I enjoyed the time at your office when I was able to do the workshop.
Yeah,
with your team.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was fun. No, it's you know, I think architecture, I've certainly enjoyed it, you know, for the last 25, 26 years. But I think anything really in the creative fields are going to be, they're great, right? Because it's never the same. It's always changing. It's an evolution. You're working on so many different dynamic projects, and it's not stale.
Mm-hmm.
It's good stuff.
Good stuff. All right, I like that. Good stuff. Thanks, man.